Welcome, it's Annie Collins for Lavinia World. Today we'll be creating a Halloween witch card. Let's go over the products I use to create this card. Let's start with our stamps. Willow the Witch, which is LAV 194. She has a staff and a cauldron. And her cauldron is a separate stamp so that you can place it anywhere around the card or use it on its own. The next stamp we'll be using is the Mini Orbs, which is LAV 595. I'm going to get my camera to focus real quick so you can see it's a large orb with smaller orbs in and around it. And then Stars 1 Mini, which is LAV 211, which is a larger star with smaller stars around it. So those are our stamps. Next is our pattern paper, which is actually pattern cardstock. It's called the Fairy Hugs Fairyscape paper, and it's 6x6. This one is called Purple Glow Sphere. I went ahead and cut it down so that I had a portion of the sphere and a lot of this purple cloud or background. So I have a layering cardstock with 65 weight of purple, and 80 pound of black, and a white card base which is 110 pound. Now let's bring in the inks we'll be using. Versafine, Clair, and Nocturne. This will be used to stamp our images. Distress Oxide and Black Soot. I'll be using that to create a platform for our witch and all around the edges. Distress Oxide and Twisted Citron, which I'll be using to stamp the mini orbs and the stars, which will be great because the green will pop off the background. Okay. I also die cut a few clouds. I may not use all of these, but I figured to have plenty in black and gray cardstock. And I have a sentiment here that reads Happy Halloween, ready to go. All right, so let's get started with our project. First, we're going to take our card panel. I'm going to use the black soot. Like I said, I'm going to create a better landing for our witch so it doesn't look like she's floating in the sky. So I'm going to ink up my brush here and just start layering on the ink. And then I'll go all around the edges once I have it. I'll keep checking with my stamp to make sure that there's enough of an edge and it's dark enough. Some of the cloudy background or hilly background may show through, but my goal is to get it as dark as possible. So I start going around the edges, and I'll go back to the base here in a few minutes. I just wanted to go all the way around. And I'm not putting a lot on the edges, just enough to give it a more of a darker or spookier kind of feel. Just a tad more here on the edge. And I'm going to check my witch. Yep, I want a little bit, just a tad more, I think, but I'll do that in a little bit. Okay, so let's clean up this messy background real quick. Spray a little water, wipe it off. Okay, now we're going to bring in our stamping platform. Well, I'm sorry, before I bring in our stamping platform, I want to go ahead and ink up my gray clouds. I put them down, but you really can't see them on. It's a gray mat with gray clouds. So I bring in this white piece of paper so I can just ink it. I'm not re-inking my brush. I'm just using whatever ink is left on it. Just give it a little dimension. I'll set those to the side, clear this paper out of the way, and bring in my stamping platform. So here's our panel. And I'm going to put a small piece of tape so my panel doesn't move all over the place. As well as I'll use my magnet. But in the beginning here, I wasn't sure how much space my witch would take. I know she's not going to take all the space, but I wanted to make sure my magnets weren't in the way while I did some placing. So I placed my witch. I want a portion of her to be towards the sphere or closer to the sphere. I know I want my sentiment right there on the top, centered. And my cauldron I'll stamp in a few minutes because I want to make sure she's on the panel first. Alright, so I put her on my platform, and I'm going to ink it up with the Versafine Clair. I rub my stamp first because it's the first time I'm using it, and I want to make sure that I, get a nice coverage. I'll press it down. I use my microfiber cloth to rub it. Now I moved it a little bit off screen because it's hard to rub trying to stay under the camera, and I don't want to bump the camera. I'll press it again because I missed a spot. Rub it really well. And there she's done. Now I realize my bottom edge is a little lighter than my witch, so I'll ink that again in a few minutes. Let's go on to our cauldron. I want it to be just under her hand so it looks like she's sprinkling something into her cauldron there, into her her potion. I couldn't think of the word. Okay, so I got it on there nice and dark. And I'm going to do my sentiment. I want to center it as best as possible, make sure it's straight. Pick it up and ink it again with the Versafine Clair in Nocturne. Now that I'm going to give it a little bit more, I just want it a little bit darker. There, now that it's nice and dark, as you can see, the ink is quite wet because Versafine Clair Nocturne ink stays wet for a little bit longer. Perfect for embossing. So while we were off camera, I went ahead and darkened my little edge, and I heat set it with my heat tool. So now let's move on. I'm going to stamp our orbs with the twisted citron right over the cauldron. I'm just going to move it around so I get it how I want and stamp it. Now, I wish I would have stamped it twice. I stamped it once, and although you can see it in real life, on screen you could barely see it. But if you stamp it twice, you'll see it even brighter. So now I move on to the stars. I'm going to stamp this twice. The first one straight up from the orbs, and the second one on a slant. Then I decide I'm going to stamp one closer to the cauldron. You can see it here in the light, and up close in real life you can see it's really nice and bright. But on camera you could barely see it. Okay, so let me close all our ink and move our stamps out of the way. I want to put them back so I don't lose them. And now we can start building our card. So I'm going to start by layering our, adhering our black layer to our card base. Just put a little bit of art glitter glue on the back and center it on our card base. I have this panel just a little bit smaller than our card base, so I have a little white so it's a little brighter, so it's not such a dark card. I'm going to go ahead and adhere our witch panel onto the purple cardstock. Same thing with this. I have a nice little edge all the way around, about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I'm going to flip it over and press it from behind because my distress oxides are still a little wet, and I didn't want to smear it with my hand. So if you place it down on your surface, make sure it's not a moving surface or a slick surface, then you can press your adhesive very well. Alright, so I'm going to bring in a Jelly Roll pen in Sparkle. I'm going to go ahead and dot all the centers of our little stars. I'm going to admit something. I went a little crazy with the dotting here with the little glitter dots. I start out very well with the stars. I probably should have stopped there. I'll go up to the sentiment, which is great because it looks like the little potion is evaporating into the night sky. But then I decide, let's put a few dots on her. And then I went a little crazy. This looks so nice. I'll just keep adding. So I'm not so sure if I love it afterwards with all the little dots on her costume or her clothes. However, it's done, and the person who's going to get this, I'm sure will love it because they love everything glittery and shiny. I even put some on her staff there. Okay, so now that we have all our little glittery dots everywhere, an excessive amount, I know, I'm going to go ahead and add our clouds. So if you don't want the clouds, you don't have to. You can leave it here. Actually, I forgot about my clouds for a second, I have to admit that, and I started adding my embellishments, which are matte enamel dots in green, orange, and purple. And then I remembered, oh yeah, my clouds, so I'll put them on here in a second. So I put a total of 5 enamel dots, 3 towards the bottom and 2 towards the top. Then I'm like, yep, my clouds, must put them on here. So I grab 1 black cloud and 1 gray cloud. Decide where I want to place it. And I put a little glitter on the art glitter glue in the back of the black cloud, and then I layer the smaller gray cloud on top of it. I pull in another one thinking, yeah, let's add another one, but then it starts to look too busy to me. So I opted out, which is a good thing. But then, hey, the poor little cloud doesn't look so shiny, so I add some more glitter pen to our cloud. So I just, on the gray one, I just put a few little accenting dots and such. So now our card is complete. All that's left is to fill in the inside sentiment. Again, let's go over everything we used today to complete this card. We used the following paper, which is the Fairy Hugs Fairyscape in Purple Glow Sphere, Willow the Witch. We use the mini Orbs, Star 1 Mini, Versafine Clair in Nocturne, Distress Oxide in Black Soot, Distress Oxide in Twisted Citron, a few embellishments like our glitter pen and enamel dots, and of course our clouds. I'll have everything listed below just in case going over everything was too quick, and links to where you can, to the store so you can purchase them if you're interested. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I really appreciate it. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel so you can get more inspiration.